Road Accident Fund has paid out a staggering 45 billion rand in claims for the 2023-2024 financial year. Yet questions remain about how much of this taxpayer money is actually reaching the intended victims and how much is being lost to fraud, inflated injuries, as well as legal fees. With the average payout per claim sitting at over 700,000, there is growing concern about RAF's ability to properly verify accidents and prevent fraudulent claims. Furthermore, the suspension of critical initiatives like the Project LUFT, designed to combat fraud at the accident scene, has left many wondering why such a program was ever halted. To help us unravel these issues, let's now speak to crash specialist and former contractor to the Road Accident Fund, Stan Bezuidenhout. Stan, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us. I want to start off with the delays in dealing with the matters that are before the courts. When we spoke to the judge president of the Gauteng High Court Division, Dustin Mlambo, he blamed lawyers. He said that lawyers want to litigate because that means that they will get more money. And I remember after the interview, some lawyers responding to the interview saying that actually the fault lies with the Road Accident Fund, which does not want to settle out of court. Who should take blame for the delays?
Good morning, firstly, Aldrin. That's a convoluted question because it gets complicated. But the bottom line is, I think everybody's kind of to blame. I'll tell you where the blame falls. The first blame falls with law enforcement and a fraternity that is responsible for gathering evidence at the scenes. If that's not done properly, it becomes kind of fuzzy logic. It's he said, she said, they said, we said, and it opens the doors for lawyers to get involved because the facts aren't directly obvious. There's a term in law called res ipsa loquita, which means the facts speak for themselves. And in the case where the facts are not there, it's kind of open to interpretation. Then the lawyers have to get involved. Now, what would happen is you submit a claim to the Road Accident Fund for an amount that's calculated. So it's a matter of these are the medical costs, these are the future earning losses, these are the effects, the rehabilitation, etc. for injuries. And then the fund says, no, but we don't agree with how you say the accident happened. You must prove the merits because they insure the driver that is guilty. So now you must prove that driver's guilt to determine to what extent they have to compensate you. So then the lawyer has to go back and he has to fight this. Now it becomes litigation. Then we go to the process of applying for that money through the courts. There are some courts that are delayed by up to 2 years before you can get a court date. So you might be ready. Your papers might be done. You might have the explanation in book and you've proceeded with summons. Now you must get a trial date. Now the trial date could be 2 years away. So that's another problem. Then from the Road Accident Fund side, it's essentially like an insurance. Now I can't make allegations to the motivations of an organization or even an entity, but I can tell you that there could be motivations within their halls towards saying, listen, the longer we delay this, the less we have to pay the money now. If the courts suddenly became efficient, if we made it digital and suddenly the courts were efficient and all the summonses were finalized into final court orders and they had to pay, the question is, are they even liquid? Are they even able to pay all that money? So it's in their benefit to delay, and then they hope for battle fatigue. They hope for people to pass away because think about it. Maybe I owe a claimant 10 million. Maybe the claimant dies in another car accident 6 months from now. Now the family has to start a new lawsuit for the money they were supposed to get. So it's kind of like a delaying tactic. And then to get to the lawyers. I honestly, firmly believe I work with law firms. I get appointed by law firms and I work in the insurance industry all the time, mostly opposite insurers. And I see exactly the same trend. A lawyer gets paid to litigate. If a lawyer gets appointed and they settle in the first week, the money stops. So sometimes you get that they write letters to and fro. I myself, with one of my own cases, every 2 weeks I get a bill from a lawyer. We went, we drove to court, we looked, your file's not done yet, we came back, pay us so much. 2 weeks, we drove to court, we came back, nothing yet, pay us so much. So it's like the goose that keeps laying the golden. And the question is, how do you solve that? How do you fix all that? And it's kind of systemic. I don't think there's a 1 minute answer on the lawyer, the Road Accident Fund, or the court side. But now for 24 years, I've said The problem lies at the proper evidence. If we know what we are talking about, there's not much basis for huge arguments.
Yeah, and here's the point that is being raised in this article as well, is the issue around how much actually goes to the claimants. And if you speak about the lawyers and that up and down, for instance, driving up to the courts to try and get to find out whether the court date has been set. They come back and then you have to pay the fee again. The question then is, how much does eventually go to the claimant, the person who's supposed to be a beneficiary of the Road Accidents Fund's payout?
That's unfortunate. I mean, I've just come across a news article just preparing for this interview where the court order was for something like 800,000 or 700 and something thousand, and the lawyer's fees was over 800,000. So after the Road Accident Fund compensated the victim for the damages they suffered, they actually ended up owing the lawyer 84,000 more. So they've lost their income. They've lost perhaps their job because they were in hospital forever. They've lost their ability to earn properly. They do get money from the fund. And then on top of that, they've got to ask family and friends, can you please give me money because the lawyer is going to sue me for his money. And now, how do we solve that? Again, if it was not necessary for the lawyer to spend 5 years litigating, it wouldn't have been that high in terms of fees. It's unfortunately a problem that, and with all due respect to the fund, I've worked with Mr. Lutswalo when he was involved in the Road Traffic Management Corporation. I can't say that a CEO could come into the fund, wave some magic wand and suddenly fix all of it. But unfortunately, he stands at the door and everybody looks at him and he's the face of the Road Accident Fund. And I firmly believe that unless they look at solving the problem at the roots level, you're going to have this just accumulating. And what we're going to have is they're going to ask for more money. The public's going to give more money. It's going to be, the claims are going to go up. It's going to go even longer.
Yeah.
And again, on the issue of we've reduced it, it's a statistical manipulation. How much have we reduced it? What about claimants from 5 years ago, 10 years ago? To quote this last 24-month or 12-month period, unfortunately, gives a little bit of a skewed image of what is really going on financially.
Yeah, because the thing about that is that those payments could actually be payments that were, the claims were made 5 years ago, if anything of that nature. And also now we're seeing that there's an increase in the number of people who want their own private cars, who can't rely on public transport. And then on the other part as well, you have the courts that are pushing cases as far back as October 2029. So the question is, how do we deal with that particular aspect? Should we have a specialized court that solely deals with road accident fund matters?
I believe so. I firmly believe so. I think that the problem is that, remember, the reason why the Road Accident Fund exists in the first place is one of the arguments was if everybody went to court suing each other, they will tie up the courts forever and most people won't be compensated. So let's start the fund to avoid that. And now that very fund to avoid that has basically backlogged the courts or contributed to the backlog to the point where we are now sitting, as you correctly said, 9 years away. And then this problem was complicated. I personally worked with attorneys who finalized matters. They had court orders. The court decided the Road Accident Fund must pay. They determined how much they must pay, and they even determined how they must pay. Then the Road Accident Fund lawyers went back to court, and they applied for those matters to be reconsidered. It's called rescission. And now what happened is those matters have to go back. Now those matters are delayed by 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. So even when you have found your day in court and justice has been served, there's a mechanism for the Road Accident Fund to delay those payouts even further. Yeah. That's very concerning.
Stan, just a quick one on the locking up the facts, the LUFT. That apparently has been done away with. What are some of the concerns when it comes to details and facts that are gathered and information that is gathered at a crash scene that sometimes can be manipulated?
Yeah, sure. So for starters, Project LUFT was started as a pilot project. It was never a final project, which I must give to the Road Accident Fund. It's never like they said, it's a final decision. But I can tell you from personal experience, having investigated probably in excess of about 6,000 cases for the Road Accident Fund personally myself, I'll tell you what happens. One night we got to a crash scene. Now our job was to go to the scene to verify that the collision happened, what the damages were to the cars, what the injuries were to the people, who the people were that were involved, what hospitals they were transported to, and sometimes even whether they were admitted or simply discharged. Now, we were at a crash scene where there were people that I've been photographing for some time. And suddenly a guy literally came, walked up, fell down on the ground, and literally went like this. And I said, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "I was in the car." I said, "No, you were not." And then we had cases, for instance, at Alexandria, where a truck rolled. When the truck rolled, there were some 42 people on it. Out of the 42 people, 8 people were transported to hospital. 3 days later, a taxi arrived at the farm where the people were working again, picked them up and transported them to the local clinic, attempted to register injuries. The clinic declined. They then went to another doctor, found them, and some of those people were put in hospital. When we investigated that, we were confronted by police officials and asked, "Why are you worried about this? What is your interest here? Why are you concerned?" Commercial crimes would not even investigate the fraud that came out of that. So we know that there's fraud. People come into hospitals from assault cases. Then a security guard gets paid by a town to add their name to a taxi crash, and those billions get claimed from the road accident fund. In the just under year and a half that we ran with Project LUFT, the claim rate, the number of physical applications for compensation in the whole Eastern Cape dropped by some 50%.
Sure, some shocking anecdotes there. Yes, no, should it be implemented permanently?
I think so.
Okay, then
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time. Stan Bezuidenhout, the crash specialist and former road accident fund contractor. Thank you so much for making time for us. We're going to take a